it's important for leaders to recognize that the organization 12 months from the day they're making a decision will look completely different.
Yes.
And we have to make the best available talent decision for the future of the business as we perceive it based on the construct we know.
Hey everyone, today I'm talking with a friend and a guest who is a CFO, has operated as a COO. And when I look at individuals like this, because I meet with so many, there's a common characteristic of assessing risk and trapping it and making sure that the organization doesn't devolve or crash. And then there's a small subset of people that run towards burning buildings. And I feel like that might be Adam Kozak, who I'm speaking with today. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So I look at this now as the easiest entry point for a conversation is give people a background on yourself, your origin, where you started and where you find yourself now.
I've got a very non-traditional career path. You look really early on, CPA, Deloitte and Touche, mid-size accounting firm, focus on retail and CPG. And then I move into Loblaws, this giant Rubik's Cube of complex businesses intertwined to ultimately just sell some food. And over an 11-year period, I've really focused and come with a sense of heightened curiosity to solve complex business problems in a non-traditional way. So we talk about running into a burning building. Well, oh my gosh, how do we design and monetize a retail loyalty program? How do we integrate IT and supply chain for the acquisition of Shoppers Drug Mart? How do we transform back office controllership with really boring functions like accounts payable and customs and global trade? Things that people wouldn't normally look to say, hey, there's value here. And we can really help improve not only the people's lives that are doing those jobs, but also the people's lives that these functions serve. And I think that's pretty exciting. And post Loblaws, it drew me into cannabis. How do we help legitimize a nascent industry that has no defined path and that has a huge opportunity to mindfully and strategically deploy capital? And through all those opportunities, I've had a great time. And I look at each role as I go into as, what is that highlight reel, that hero moment that we can look back to or look forward to say, hey, at the end of the year, I'm going to get this done. And that's going to be exciting. And I think that's brought me to my current role today, which is in a private equity sponsored organization going through a transformation, incredible opportunity for growth, incredible opportunity to lead people, get everyone excited to make a difference.
Okay, so let's be clear. Like these are things that are diametrically opposed when you're talking about Loblaws. Revenue, how much? Ballpark?
60 billion plus.
It's pocket change. 60 billion plus. And then you decide to go to the nascent industry of cannabis, which is emerging. And you're doing it in which geographies?
Initially in Canada, and then across about 5 or 6 states in the US, which brings, again, a layer of complexity and an undefined data set to solve problems. No one's ever done it before, right? And I think for me, that's what's exciting, is coming in with that curiosity, coming in with that inquisitiveness, taking, little Lego pieces from all of my various experiences and saying, how can I apply this Lego piece that may have worked at Loblaws to the nascent industry of cannabis, to, retail distribution and direct store delivery, to food manufacturing, to now mass agriculture, environmental services, and really in an organization that's an environmental steward.
Your time at Loblaws and the work that you did, you had various roles in the organization. You need to map what you develop there in terms of competencies and skills to this next role for us, because so often people say like, hey, like I want to stay in a standard, highly structured or large organization. I love doing M&A or I love doing this function. You've done a host of functions in the organization. So be specific around what you left there with that allowed you to take on the next role, which had complete ambiguity tied into it. And maybe I'm misinterpreting what Loblaws actually is. maybe there is a ton of ambiguity in how you're going to execute things.
Joe, I think the largest skill, and I don't want to use the buzzword of business partnership, but it is the business. And I think finance professionals have an incredible opportunity to start with the business. What's happening in the distribution center? What's happening at the cash register? What's happening out in the field that you see behind me? And how are those trees getting grown? And seek to understand that construct, that framework, and then work backwards on how finance enables it. And for me, I've been lucky. I've gotten to work in loyalty and marketing. I've gotten to work in IT. I've gotten to work in distribution and supply chain. I've gotten to work in actually running food factories and being an operator. But all of that comes with a muscle, a behavior, and an approach to say, start with the business and understand what's actually happening at the shop floor. If you're in a SaaS business, how's the product getting coded? How's the product getting sold? If you're in a loyalty business, how are we going to drive consumer engagement and then work backwards to determine how we're going to monetize it and create process and controls and reporting, all the things finance professionals are trained to do.
So we learn often from what people, and there's bullet holes getting shot into this all the time, which is best practice or, best in industry. And when you're solving the problems like what you had at Loblaws, are you looking at them from first principles? Are you using comparables? Are you saying, okay, we have this business, we look at this specific function within it and how it serves the business, we know that we can do better. Like how do you know by that you can do better? And by how much? And what reference models do you use? Because data's everywhere. You can make it fit whatever story, but I'm curious what your process and your practice was there.
We always started with what's best in class and what are our competitors doing. I use the word R&D as replicate and duplicate, right? I would say 90% of business problems out in the world exist and they've been solved. What doesn't exist is how it fits together in a Rubik's Cube and where those little squares are. Every time you scramble it, it's a little bit different. But the colors are all the same in a Rubik's Cube. They're just in a different construct. And so leaders, professionals, operators all need to figure out how to take how that Rubik's Cube is solved or to be solved and apply all of the learnings and what our competitors have done and what you see as best practice in the external industries and say, how does that fit to my industry, to my construct, to my Rubik's Cube that I'm trying to solve? And being able to do that effectively, in a large matrixed organization and then pivot, completely transform a finance professional's approach to be able to do it in the cannabis sector, pre-revenue, capital flowing like crazy to, organic food, organic vegan and vegetarian food manufacturing, all different constructs. But the ultimate problem statement is very similar. And so being dynamic, being curious, being inquisitive, not being afraid to fail, saying, hey, we're going to try this. This is an option, an opportunity. I think this is our risk-based best course of action, course correcting quickly, and always being mindful of what's the cost of not acting. Because I do believe businesses, sometimes succumb to analysis paralysis and get crippled by decision making. I think whether you're in a large matrix or, pre-revenue, entrepreneurial, industry agnostic, our role as leaders is to help the business make a decision, move forward, and then course correct if that decision isn't in the best interest of our stakeholders.
Now, if we take that and we move it forward into how you've selected these roles, I want to hear about a moment where you made a calculation, took a risk, and were wrong in the selection of the path, where you went and then what you did once you landed in that, where you're like, hey, this is very different than I expected. Some people opt out and be like, gotta go. Or some people are like, okay, now I have to rebuild my mental framework for this job because it's wildly different than I expected. So where were things different than expected?
I think for me, looking into every role, it's really understanding how can I make a difference? And that's the humble way for me to say, what's going to be my hero moment? What's the mandate and what's really going to be my highlight reel play? Like if, if I were to be on SportsCenter, TSN, how's that going to look? And then number two for me is, what is the professional chemistry with the management team, the board of directors or external stakeholders, the shareholders, the fund manager, et cetera? And how does that all fit in? And do I see alignment to the mandate? And I have had one opportunity where the mandate was described to me in a certain way, a mandate for growth, a mandate for transformation. And after about a year and a bit, that clearly showed that that was not the case. And as a financial steward, number one, I'm obligated to leave an entity in a better state than I found it in. So in that specific opportunity, I took it as hey, my highlight reel is going to be different. I'm not going to buy a bunch of businesses. We're not going to expand our geographical footprint. But oh my goodness, can I automate the heck out of this process? Can I look at what our frontline employees are doing and take pressure off of their daily life? And also, by the way, improve finance. Obviously, that's always in the background. And that's how I pivoted my focus to, what am I going to do differently? How can I stay curious and engaged? And it was pretty successful. And I made a difference in a lot of people's lives, not just the shareholder that sought a return from their business.
Do you find yourself in a place where you're like, damn it, and feeling sorry for yourself, and then having to pick yourself up off the floor after those opportunities turn out to be something different and not what you really truly wanted for yourself in the moment? So you're like, some people are like, like, how do you find yourself managing your psychology at that point?
I think for me, Joe, it's a little bit different. And I look at it and I go, holy crap, did I learn something?
Okay.
Not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to ask these 6 additional questions before I even meet with the CEO or meet with the chair of the board. And I look at, what can I do different in the next challenge, the next opportunity, the next even initiative within the existing company that I'm in. And so I very strongly look at failure as learning. I very strongly look at, hey, what are the 10 new things I'm going to do? And I write them down. I've got a bit of an eidetic memory. So when I learn something, when I know something, it gets journaled. And I go back. Hey, I clearly remember that construct. We're going to go into this opportunity or this business problem in a different way. It's easy, woe is me. Okay, now I got to go get the next one. That really sucked. It's a lot harder to say, oh, wow, that's a learning. Not gonna forget to ask that question again, right?
What kept you in a role for so long with Loblaws when everyone is switching every 3 years? Or in an organization, maybe not in a role, maybe that's the actual answer to my own question here, but the idea that you stay somewhere for, was it 11 years?
10,
Something like that?
almost
Okay.
11. Yeah.
Almost 11. Like, what keeps you there doing that work for that long?
For me, my turning point at Loblaws was, I started in a very traditional role, technical accounting and external reporting. I mean, that sounds like textbook, 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 textbook. I'll go back to what we spoke to before, is starting with the business. We were going through a transformational change in external reporting. And my approach compared to my peers, my existing leader at the time, was to start with the business. And when I started with the business, so what's happening at the distribution center? What's happening at the cash register? What's happening in financial services? And then began to work backwards to say, how do we structure accounting process and policy to be compliant with external reporting requirements? That's what really unlocked my opportunities at Loblaws. The business saw that my approach was different. And then I started getting tapped, right? I came with that curiosity that the business saw to say, hey, Adam can help us figure that out. Adam can navigate this new challenge. Adam can fix this. And I think
Adam can talk with himself in the third person.
yeah. Yeah. So I think Loblaw brought what I would call development, an environment of safety where you could try different roles because the organization was so large. And so, I look at almost 11 years at Loblaws. Yes, I was with one organization, but I had a myriad of different roles and jobs and assignments. And in each one of those, there was an achievement, a hero moment, a learning, right? That I can walk away from and say, I can apply this now to a myriad of different factors, industries, stakeholders, and had a lot of fun adding value.
I have to ask the question related to large organizations and territorial behavior and someone coming in from external reporting and accounting policy saying, I want access to the business. And I can just think of the business partners being like, hey, what's this person doing? And either Loblaws figured out something that other people haven't, or you somehow managed to do what you needed to do and wanted to do regardless. I'm very curious because organizations have these different teams and they are like, these are my stakeholders, not yours. Your stakeholders are those ones over there, so stay in your lane. But somehow you're doing this kind of business partnering when it relates to accounting policy and external reporting, which is super interesting. And maybe I just have the wrong interpretation of how roles are structured. But can you tell me, was that real? Did it happen? Did you overcome it? Or was it magical there because something was set at the top, tone at the top?
So it is 100% real, Joe.
Okay.
My first month on the job in 2007, I was down with the supply chain team. And I was asked very politely to leave the team alone because they're busy. And that was a very polite way to say, this is not your wheelhouse, this is ours. Um, but I came with, hey, I'm here to learn. This is why I'm asked.
Did anybody call your boss and say, get this guy out of here?
Yep.
I thought so.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's the approach of, hey, I'm here to learn. Here's what I'm trying to get my arms around and the problem statement I'm trying to solve. And once you build a little bit of that trust, as you get resistance, you can actually start to articulate downside to a stakeholder.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what it means, to the external MD&A, to the financial statements, to the equity analysts. This is what it means to you, right? And ultimately, this accounting exercise, a well-structured set of accounting policies and procedures, if they're done in partnership with the business, and this is a very selfish statement, can help people meet their targets and get their bonuses.
Incentives are magical because they work, right? So getting the incentives aligned to reinforce what you're looking for. Sometimes people get confused around what you're really looking for and what you're trying to drive. There's the what, but how you get there is something that people will sit there and, well, maybe we should be doing these different things as opposed to, okay, let's identify the goal. Let's be clear why it matters and what it is, why it matters. And then we design the how, right? Which is really your behaviors, the way you collaborate, the way you work through things. It sounds like you're able to tell people, like, I have a how that I'm trying to tackle this problem. And I need access to teams. I need to actually work through this with people, and we're going to be delivering a much better outcome. I want to talk about two things. The first one is loneliness, the more senior you get, because I thought that was a fun conversation we were having, and what you do to mitigate it. And the second one is like building teams under constraints, which is that's my wheelhouse. And I have to deal with clients that have to make trade offs all the time because unless there's limitless money, tell me where those people are. But when we look at loneliness at senior levels, talk to me about how it changes or how it changed for you as you progressed.
So I want to acknowledge, Joe, you are 100% correct. It is very lonely at the top. And, especially in a unrelated enablement or support function. So when you're, the CTO or the CFO or the chief people officer, you're enabling an organization. You're not actually delivering tangible product, right? Our functions don't drive a truck, don't grow a tree, don't close a deal. So it's easy for, supply chain and sales and commercial to bond together fairly quickly. It's easy for production and manufacturing to bond with sales. right? Often finance, HR, IT sit in a silo, and that actually drives even more loneliness. And those support functions have actually less external support than the true drivers of commercial operations, the office of the CEO. And so it starts with your network. And it's a bit of a cliche statement because we read everywhere on LinkedIn and in Harvard Business Review, it's your network, your network, your network. Your peers, your partner are the men and women and individuals that get you through things and help you be at your best. And it's important, as much as we're busy executing our mandates, that we make time for those around us that help us bring perspective to a problem, help us laugh. And sometimes laughter is the best medicine. And so it's important to make time for yourself, build and foster a network. And in finance, it could be something as easy as FEI. Start small, right? Join an association, go out to your local CPA chapter, listen to what other people are going through. And it drives perspective. And sometimes the perspective is, oh my goodness, like, my problem is easy. I got this.
That guy is way worse than I do.
What did he do? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right? But that perspective helps us be better leaders.
Yes.
To then come in and say, I got this. We got this. The second and the last pillar is, foster and break down the cross-functional silos with your other functional groups. Make sure, you're in with your sales team. You're in with your operations team. You're carving out that time to just sit and listen. What are they working on? What are their pinch points? What are their market frustrations? What's their market feedback? And continuing as your business builds, changes, transforms, grows, to be in the room with them. And that requires an investment in time. Sometimes that requires you to research on your own so that, you can learn a bit of the specifics of how they're trying to convey their value. But ultimately, it's not easy, requires focus, requires you to carve out and invest time. And it is lonely.
I don't think anyone networks easily. Let me start with that. I don't think that anyone actually understands the value of having a group of people, whether it's your friends, your leadership team. I mean, your leadership team's in it with you. So sometimes you need to get a break from that. But having the ability to actually walk through things that are in your head and say them out loud, and then contrast them with what other people have inside their head. And you're looking like, okay, well, this person can help me solve this, or maybe I just need a different perspective. I found that the more I get out of my head with senior people as a starting point, the better I feel about the problems that I'm solving. The second part is the magical moments for me. You mentioned them, Adam, are when you are, when I'm inside of clarity, which is, the thing that I've had as a labor of love for a long time, and I'm trying to build it. And when I get a chance to work alongside the teams, that's when the magic happens. I'm like, oh, that is a constraint, but I didn't fully understand what it was before. So when you're talking about going to operations, like, and you can connect it to like, okay, so that's actually the thing that is the bottleneck. Then you can work with them because they can articulate what problem they're having, or at least the symptoms of it, and then you can reverse engineer that and work with it, and it's fulfilling. It doesn't give you you definitely feel less alone because you feel like you're part of the team, but it doesn't let you stress test some of your other thinking that you need to bring it back to the organization. So I think the external network for all of us is important. And then internally getting close to operations and doing their job sometimes, like
Yeah.
actually doing their job, man.
And Joe, it starts, I think, in all of those facets, it starts with showing up. We do a great job with our kids, 6 a.m. at the hockey arena. We do a great job with our parents if they have a medical support requirement, doctor's appointment, whatever. We do a great job with our friends. Hey, we were all in college. Hey, I need help moving. Yeah, I'll bring a case of beer and you buy the pizza and we'll get it done. It's much harder to do it for yourself.
Hmm.
No different than, 5 a.m. at the gym. I'm going to reach out for coffee next week just to catch up with that old audit partner that I worked with 5 years ago, or that board of directors chair that maybe it was really hard on me just to see how they're doing and what they're working on in their portfolio. Or, I went to this event and I met this other CFO and I heard she's working through a similar problem. We know it's easy to show up for others. We know it's hard to show up for ourselves. So we have to be deliberate.
Let's hit the second question. Building the team under constraints. This isn't every company, but it's most companies in some of the functions, right? Where where are we going to choose to invest? Because strategy is about choices. What are you going to do, not do against the goal? And if you're trying to hire under constraint, how do you think about that? How do you approach the problem and how do you break it down so you can build the right team?
I always start with my ideal state or my utopia. So how would I do it if I had no constraints? If I had access to the best talent? If I had unlimited budget? If I had the best working conditions? And I start with, what does an operating model look like under utopia? And then I begin to horse trade. So what's my constraint? Office location. What's my constraint? Technological enablement. Maybe the processes are very manual. What's my constraint? Potentially board of directors' perception on how things need to look. And then it's about finding the right partner to support you. And Joe, I'm going to use the word recruiter, but the right recruiting partner can help you and give you a sense of reality. So I look at the team we're building based on skill set availability. We've had to make certain trade-offs. So we'll hire a little bit of a different skill set over here, but as a result of that, we're actually going to refocus on where we're hiring a peer role or where we're hiring a subordinate or a support role, because we want to set that individual up for success, but also balance out the structure, the organization, and the deliverables. And having a partner that can work with me and my team and have difficult conversations. Because it's easy to say, hey, here's what you want, here you go. But it's much harder to say, hey, Adam, this is not available in the market today. Or the constraints under which you're working are going to require you to take a very predatory approach, poach someone out of this industry, and here's the cost of doing that. And that helps me as a leader then make the right decisions and set the team up for success.
I think that's the right way to do it, because you're knocking out the things by interrogating the reality. And when I say interrogate reality, it's this is utopia. Now let's interrogate, what is my reality, right? And how does this reality change things? Now, the weird part that I find is that people don't spend enough time interrogating the reality. So you've spent enough time identifying what reality actually looks like. What are the constraints? How are those going to change over time? Because time changes everything. If we're on a timeline, there's a series of events that are likely to unfold, and therefore our reality is different. And how does that change the decision we're going to make in hiring?
I want to add one more thing. It's important for leaders to recognize that the organization 12 months from the day they're making a decision will look completely different.
Yes.
And we have to make the best available talent decision for the future of the business as we perceive it based on the construct we know. And that will change. This is not 1985. We are not hiring employees for 25 and 30 years. Talent is going to shift. Talent is going to evolve. Organizations are going to automate and renovate processes and enable technology. And at times, maybe they're not, right? Maybe they're a grassroots business that works really, really well and doesn't have the opportunity to take a paper-based process and fully automate it. But making the decisions under that construct and having the reality that 24, 36, 48, 60 months from now, the individuals are also going to grow. And I think for me as a leader, when I see an individual growing within his or her role or adding a ton of value based on an existing construct, and then she or he moves to another organization or another function and gets to continue to evolve and add value, I look at that as a little bit of a proud papa moment. Hey, we helped him do that. We helped her do that. And I think it's important for leaders to continuously be aware of the construct of business is different today than it was, especially for when I grew up in business. And to understand that change will happen and we need to navigate that change to the best of our abilities within the constructs that we're aware of.
So change will happen. Right now, macro external factors feel terrifying for some organizations because what is happening macroeconomically, what is happening geopolitically, how is everything being reordered? In your time as a CFO, have you seen a shift from the weighting that these external factors play in the competitive dynamic that you're within right now? Like, do you see it as significantly different now than it was historically?
My perception or my experience, up until 2020, 2021, North America operated under a certain construct. And yes, there were, bumps in the financial crisis. There were, bumps in the 90s. But there weren't pervasive breakages in what we know how the world works. We had a pervasive breakage. And what that breakage taught me is an opportunity to actually look inward first. So as we look at where we are geopolitically, I think organizations have an incredible opportunity to look inward first and say, how do we get better? If you're not able to grow a market, if you're not able to begin to export your fantastic product because of an external factor, one that could be economically detrimental to your business, let's look inwards. How do we set the organization up for when this construct no longer exists? Because this too shall pass, right? The world and the businesses operate in cycles. And so what is the largest area of opportunity? If it's not outward external expansion, deployment of capital, is that area of opportunity looking inwards, looking at your people, your processes, allowing your teams a different area of focus for development and learning and upskilling, because that next phase will come. It may not be tomorrow, but that next phase will come. And so I believe every leader needs to look at the construct under which his or her business is working under. What are those areas of opportunity? And Canada in general has a productivity problem, but we have a productivity problem because at times Canadian entrepreneurs, Canadian business leaders have a challenge to make a decision and move forward under a set of circumstances that are so ambiguous and undefined.
Interesting. Ready for some rapid fire?
Let's go.
All right. What's one habit that you kept that works in both large, complex organizations and within the startup chaos?
Getting out in front of the business as quickly as possible.
Nice. When you inherit a team that's entrepreneurial, like brilliant, but process immature, what's the first 2-week fix that you're going to try?
It's ensuring to get buy-in on how I can help make their lives easier. What are you doing? This really sucks. I'm going to help you remove the suck.
M&A quick test. What's the single red flag that makes you walk from the deal?
The CEO, founder, entrepreneur, and the professional chemistry that the deal team has in the very early discussions of, can we actually make this work together? Because key person failure or key person risk in the transition of a deal is number one.
If you could give your younger self one question that you have to ask or that person can ask employers when they're interviewing, what would it be?
I think it's be more deliberate in your questioning. When you're younger in your career, I looked at opportunities as opportunities, and I looked at each meeting and each interview as, hey, I got to go in there and win. And my goal is to build a bond, professional chemistry. I want them to want me when I leave the ring. And I think for younger candidates, there's less of a focus of, hey, do I want them? And so if I were to ask my younger self to do something different throughout my job journeys and my exploration, it would be to be harder on the employer, be harder on the interviewing team. Stay away from the, what's your business strategy? How do I add value in 90 days? What's your problem statement? But be, hey, what's really happening here? And is this, number one, am I going to get a hero moment out of it? So am I going in here and, every 12 months, am I going to have a highlight reel that I can go back to and say, we did that and that was really cool. But number two, is that opportunity really for us? or for me. And when I say us, because any role is you, your partner, your children, your extended family, because they're the individuals that help us be at our best when we walk into the office, walk onto the shop floor, and walk into the board.
What's the worst career cliche you'd ban from a resume or from LinkedIn forever?
I don't know.
I've got one: self-starter.
Yeah.
No one's going to put in there aimless wanderer. So I gave you that one as a win.
There we go. I think you're right. That was good. Thank you for the lob.
In 3 words, how do you know if you're running towards something, not away from something?
Sunday scaries versus Monday bounce out of bed and can't wait to put your shoes on.
Love that. I want to ask one more.
Go ahead.
What is a scrappy, low cost move that will create value? Name one.
Communication, communication, communication. Support teams are focused on their processes and their execution, figuring out how to improve how frequently we communicate with our cross-functional stakeholders is the biggest low-cost, scrappiest move. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Drives engagement, drives buy-in, shows people that you're invested, shows team members that you're giving them credit.
This has been a blast. Like, it flew. I think we're 45 minutes in, and I just want to say thank you. Like, I found this to be really easy to walk through this stuff, and you gave awesome insights.
This was fun, Joe.
Thanks, Adam.